Hi everyone, I'm Lubomira and thank you for joining me. If you're visiting for the first time, welcome to my channel, and if you are returning, it's great to have you back. Here on my channel, I show you how I combine various card making techniques with elements made by the Cricut. Now, if you don't have a Cricut, that's okay. There are many ways of substituting the things I make with my electric die cut machine with other products you may have in your own stash. So stick around, you may find some inspiration for your own project. In today's video, I'll be creating a card with a watercolor background and presents made with the Cricut. What I love most about this card is its versatility. I'll be making a holiday card, but by switching out the sentiment, this card can be used for any special occasions like a birthday or a wedding. Let's get into the program. First, I'm going to insert my virtual card base so that I can see how the sizes of the shapes I make compare to my background. As I create the shapes I'll be welding, it may not make sense right away, but bear with me. It will all come together in the end. I'm going to insert a triangle, and I want it to be a rather elongated one with a narrow base. Measurements aren't really that important here, but I'm putting in 2 inches high by 1 inch wide. I'm going to rotate the triangle to 120 degrees by using the tool in the toolbar. Then I'm going to move it to the top left corner using the positioning tool. Once I have it there, I can duplicate it and then flip it horizontally so I have a mirror image of the first triangle. I want them to touch at the tip. I could move it manually, but I'm going to use the positioning tool and just change the x-axis to the same size as the width of my triangle. This will position the triangle where I need it to be. Once they are touching, I'm going to weld them together. I need another triangle, and I'm going to repeat the same steps I did before with a few exceptions. This time, I'll be rotating my triangle to 155 degrees instead of 120. Then I'm going to do the same things I did with the previous triangle. After welding my second pair of triangles, I have 2 winged shapes. I'm going to weld them together at their center points. I'm just going to eyeball this here since I don't want to overcomplicate it. When I'm done, this is going to serve as our present bows. I'll set the bow aside and start working on the individual boxes themselves. The first will resemble a window frame. I'll insert a 4 by 4 inch square followed by 4 1 1/4 inch squares. Using the positioning tool, I move the small squares a 1/2 inch apart so that each of them form a pane in the larger square. Once they are positioned, I weld the 4 smaller ones together before slicing them into the larger one. Next, I want to create a tall box. I insert a rectangle and I make it 2 by 4 inches. I insert another rectangle, and this one will be 2.5 by 1 inch. The smaller rectangle will serve as our lid of our box. I position them at the top left corner using the positioning tool, the smaller one on top and the larger one slightly overlapping the bottom by 1/4 inch. I line them with the alignment tool, and I use the center horizontal option. When they are positioned, I weld them together. They look like an upside down top hat. I'm almost done with this one, but I want to create a slight variation between all my boxes. I'm going to slice a small window into the lid of this taller box by inserting another 2 by 1/2 inch rectangle. I'll center it in the middle of the lid and then slice it. The last box I create is just a plain wide rectangle. I make it 4 inches wide by 2 inches tall. And that completes all 3 boxes. Now I have to add the bows. I first duplicate the bows so I have 3 of them, and then I resize them according to the size of the boxes I want. When I like what I see, I take each box and bow, position them so that they slightly overlap, and then center them horizontally so that the bow sits in the middle of each box. Once they are positioned, I weld them together. I do this for each box, and when they are done, all I have to do is resize. After finishing with the program and sending my project to be cut, I can work on the other elements of my card. First, I'm going to be making my background. I'm using this background cling stamp from Hero Arts. I took out everything from my Misty to use this stamp since it's thicker than a clear stamp. For my paper, I'm using Strathmore cold press watercolor paper, and the Misty really comes in handy, especially when using texture paper like this. I can stamp it multiple times to make sure I'm getting a nice impression. I'll be heat embossing with clear embossing powder, so I pre-treat my paper with an anti-static tool and then ink up my stamp with VersaMark ink. Once I have my image stamped, I remove it from the Misty and then I sprinkle some Hero Arts clear embossing powder over the image, making sure to knock off the excess. Once the powder is in place, I melt it with my heat tool. The melted embossing powder will resist any color I put on my panel, leaving a nice white outline image. I'm going to be creating a flowy background using a wet watercolor technique. I love creating these types of watercolors because they are simple and quick. I let the paint do whatever it wants and just add water or pigment to the panel. My watercolor setup is very simple. I'm not going to be taping my panel today since it's such a small piece. I'm using Alta New watercolors straight from the pan with little to no pre-mixing. I chose 3 colors, a purple, a teal, and a blue. I spritz my paper with water and then start adding the paint. The paper is pretty wet and I'm using a size 5 round brush. I simply place the color on the panel, first keeping the color separate and then slowly with the brush guiding them to mix and interact them. I slightly bounce my brush to move the colors around. My panel is very wet and I go back to add more water or pigment. I don't want to overwork my colors, so I'm going to set my panel aside to dry. After letting it dry for some time, I can place it on top of a card base and then start decorating it. Off camera, I went ahead and die cut a nice stitch circle from some vellum. This will act like a spotlight for the Cricut cut pieces. Using some foam tape, I pop up my gift boxes. I'm not going to lie, this was tricky in the places where my boxes were very thin, but cutting the strips of foam tapes down or using smaller foam squares, I was able to fit all the foam tape behind my presents. Another neat thing about having the presents on top of the vellum is it gives me space behind the vellum to camouflage my foam tape. Add an additional pop of color, I added some enamel accents to the card in a combination of purple, blue, and teal. Once dried, the larger enamel dots will also serve as a place to hide more foam adhesive behind the vellum. After everything is dry, I add my sentiments from the Christmas message stamp set, also from Hero Arts. I really love this set too. It has a nice variety of sentiments for the holidays. I use a light blue cardstock and silver pigment ink from Delicata. I die cut this from a framed banner die and then die cut a separate piece to create that glitter frame from the same cardstock that the presents were die cut. I adhere my sentiments using some foam tape, and that will finish this card. Can you see how many different occasions this card can fit simply by changing the sentiment? I really enjoyed making this card. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed yourself, remember to hit the like button. And if you'd like to see more videos, please subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time. Bye!